The Biden administration has taken a major step toward economically isolating Moscow following its invasion of Ukraine. President Biden announced yesterday the United States no longer will import Russian oil and blamed spiking gas prices squarely on Vladimir Putin.
Today, I'm announcing the United States is targeting the main artery of Russia's economy. We're banning all imports of Russian oil and gas and energy. That means Russian oil will no longer be acceptable at U.S. ports, and the American people will deal another powerful blow to Putin's war machine. This is a move that has strong bipartisan support in Congress and, I believe, in the country. Americans have rallied to support their Ukrainian people and made it clear we will not be part of subsidizing Putin's war. The decision today is not without cost here at home. Putin's war is already hurting American families at the gas pump. Since Putin began his military buildup on Ukrainian borders, just since then, the price of the gas at the pump in America went up 75 cents. And with this action, it's going to go up further. I'm going to do everything I can to minimize Putin's price hike here at home.
The White House announcement there was met with broad support. Business Roundtable, an association of CEOs that lead American companies, issued a statement writing it commends continued efforts by the administration, including the ban on Russian oil imports. Britain followed America's lead. The UK will phase out imports of Russian oil by the end of this year. European allies, though, are more reliant on Russian energy than the United States. Russian oil makes up 8% of demand in the UK. That's according to Britain's business minister. Ukrainian President Zelensky praised President Biden on Twitter after the announcement, writing, "Thankful for U.S. and the President of the United States' personal leadership in striking the heart of Putin's war machine." Joining us now, White House Bureau Chief at Politico, Jonathan Lemire. He's, of course, the host of Way Too Early, and senior economics reporter from CNBC, Steve Liesman. Good morning to you both. John, the sequencing of this move was interesting. We heard from Nancy Pelosi first, then Chuck Schumer, and then it appears they sort of nudged the White House along to this position.
Yeah, it's a rare moment in this Biden's Washington here where Congress really pushed the White House into doing something that they were initially reluctant to do. They made it clear a week or two back, the administration did, that they didn't want to take this step. They're aware of gas prices were already surging. They're nervous about inflation. They knew this would send prices up even higher. But a couple things happened. This gained first some momentum among Republicans. They leapt onto this issue late last week. Then President Zelensky had a Zoom call with lawmakers over the weekend. It made an emotional appeal for two things: the no-fly zone and this oil ban. Lawmakers recognize no-fly zone's a non-starter. That couldn't happen, but this could. And look, it is in some ways symbolic. The U.S. only imports a pretty small amount of Russian oil. The UK joined, but no other European country did. They're far more reliant on Russia. This will indeed send prices up. That worries the White House. But they felt like this is something they had to do. First of all, they want to be simply on the right side of history on this issue. We heard from President Biden yesterday saying in no way do we want to be subsidizing Putin's war machine. But they also wanted to try to avoid a political box here. That the Republicans, who of course support the ban too, but would blame the administration for either A, being weak on Russia if they didn't do it, or now, even though they have, going to blame them for rising gas prices. But this was still the right decision. And Pelosi and Schumer pushed the White House. The president and his team realized they had to follow suit. The ban is in place, and they're still weighing the idea of sanctions on the Russia energy sector, which, of course, would have more financial implications, would send prices higher. But they feel like that might be the next step they have to take if Putin doesn't back down.
Yeah, you're getting at the politics of this, which are interesting. Republicans, yes, we support this, but the minute gas prices go up, it's Joe Biden's fault. So, Steve, let's talk about what this move actually does to gas prices. We're already at record highs, $4.17 a gallon as of Tuesday. It is a small percentage of the oil the United States gets, much more, though, in the UK and, of course, European countries who aren't going along with this because they do rely so much on it.
Right.
What is the practical impact here?
Well, if I could just add to what John was saying, it's not this move is really symbolic in the sense that we don't use a lot of Russian oil. What's happened is the other sanctions that are out there on banks and the movement of money has really caused Russian oil not to be hitting the world market. Shippers are reluctant to ship it. Banks are reluctant to take the money for it. Insurers are reluctant to insure the ship. So this ban yesterday, yeah, I listened to John on the politics, sure. But in the financial world, the Russian oil is sort of off the market now. That's why you have this big spike. If all we were doing was banning the 3% we import, it would be almost no impact. But the price spike comes from the fact that Russian oil is not hitting markets. What the impact, I think, is going to be obviously on low and moderate income Americans. They're going to be hit hardest because it's like a tax. All of a sudden, the amount to go to work has gone up quite a bit. Any kind of driving they do, there's going to be airlines are going to cut back, I think, on some flights that aren't full, and you'll have all kinds of changes in the economy because of it. One difference this time from all of the price spikes: America's energy balance is about zero. We import and export about the same. This is the first price spike we've been through. So you're going to have a huge surge in oil company profits, and the question is how much they do in terms of additional drilling to put the money back into the economy.
So, Steve, let's talk about how remarkable this is. A week ago, we talked about the possibility of banning Russian oil, and people said, "Oh, it's just impossible. We can't do it." The Wall Street Journal that day had a very helpful chart saying we get 7% from Russia, and a week later, you have Joe Biden making the announcement with a lot of Republicans pressuring him. How out of the ordinary is this for the United States to go so aggressively after Russia, even though Americans know it's going to cause the prices to go up at the pump?
You know, this whole thing is amazing in terms of the sanctions. Look, Russia is the 11th largest country in the world. It's a G20 nation. We have never put sanctions like this almost on any country. In fact, there's the Atlantic Council counts sanctions. Russia has now surpassed Iran in terms of the total number of sanctions on it. We have never essentially sanction bombed a country, and having been there in the early 90s, it looks like they're back to where they were in terms of their ability to do commerce and integrate with the West right now from where they were around the Soviet times. And you have all these capital controls. Russians can't send money aboard. They've got to give their money back, their dollars back to the central bank. These were the sort of things I saw when I was there in the 90s.
Yes, Steve, I want to ask you about another story that broke yesterday, read in the Financial Times. Of course, you've heard congressional Republicans talking about supporting Biden's decision to ban Russian oil imports, but they're also they want to take back the House and Senate this fall, and they're trying to capitalize on the situation by saying the administration is the fault for these rising gas prices, and some are arguing that Biden's not doing enough to open up domestic oil production. But in fact, the administration's ratcheted up pressure on U.S. shale producers. According to the Financial Times, these producers are being told to do, quote, whatever it takes to increase supply and tame oil prices. You had the State Department Special Envoy and Coordinator for International Affairs actually saying it's not a U.S. government problem. If there's a bottleneck, it's on Wall Street. They should call their financiers and tell them there's a war going on. Of course, he made that statement after talking to a lot of oil producers who said their shareholders right now don't want to go through another round of risky and expensive exploration. What's your take on this? Is the bottleneck at Wall Street or is the bottleneck in Washington, D.C.?
I'm sorry, Joe, if my answer is unsatisfying, but it's both. Let's be clear. The Biden administration has not been friendly to the oil business. They came in after administration that kind of ignored the climate change, and this administration said it's a big deal, and they urged people to do it, and they weren't all that friendly. They weren't all that unfriendly. But look what's happened. Let's be clear about the history of this. Oil prices tanked in 2020 with the pandemic. The hedge funds, that Wall Street got their head handed to them when it came to the investments that they made there. And they promised never again. The oil executives came forward and said to their shareholders, we're going to be very careful about the next time when oil prices rise about doing development and developing new fields. So it's really both. And if you ask me what was happening, okay, let me give you some numbers. We're 250 rigs above where we were a year ago for a total of about 650 right now. We're 1.6 million barrels a day above where we were a year ago for about 11.6 million barrels a day. We're still about 1.5 million under. Oil production was on the way back up. It was really nothing. Oil prices were probably on the way down until this came along. So I would say the Biden administration could have been more friendly to the oil business, but Wall Wall Street certainly was holding back, and the oil companies themselves were trying not to maximize production because they had those losses back in 2020.
Well, you can certainly understand why the oil industry was doing that. Obviously, the situation's changed an awful lot.
Sure.
Steve, thanks so much for being with us. Jonathan Lemire, is there going to be a new bumper sticker coming out of the White House? Drill, baby, drill? Because right now, that sounds like that's their new position.
Yeah, we heard from the president yesterday really urging the private oil companies to say, look, you have these permits, you have the ability to do more drilling. You should do that. Take advantage of that. You already have this authorization to do so. And the White House is considering other measures to try to boost domestic energy production here to offset what, of course, they're now stopping bringing in from Russia. And we do know there are some in the administration who think that Europe could follow suit. At least some European countries could follow suit and also cut off energy consumption from Russia. It would be more painful there for certain. There are some who fear that it could even trigger a recession on the continent if that were to happen. We've heard from Germany they don't want to do it. But there is at least some possibility that as if the war continues, they might do the same. But certainly the politics of this, Joe, are front of mind now for the White House as well, because they are watching the prices soar as we head into a midterm year.
Hey, thanks so much for watching our YouTube channel. You can follow up on today's top stories and breaking news, or catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.